You see the tweet? I see the Twitterati. Miss Trashka, Miss Audrey Trashka, and her quote tweet, where she says, Indians are not free to worship. Don't know in which part. Indians cannot change their religion. Don't know if there exists a thing called love jihad. Or simply live without discrimination. Don't know in which article of the constitution it is violated. Further, she says, it never used to be like that. India's religious freedom tanked under Modi. But, the indefinite support for USCIRF is visible throughout her tweets. And I'll tell you that this tweet is succeeded by this one, where Ms. Trashka is in the quest for a free democratic India. To put things in perspective, Ms. Trashka is not an Indian citizen and has no locus standi. Further, her romanticization and whitewashing of Mughal ruler Aurangzeb leave little to imagine where her loyalties lie. Further urging and applauding US lawmakers to stand up for human rights. Now, this is very problematic in nature. Actually, at least for the majority of Indians. Well, you never know when one fine day you may be deemed oppressors by the so-called keepers of democracy. Just because your version of nationalism doesn't align or get along well with their versions of secularism. Holding this for a while. Now let us switch to the context that strengthens it. Check out the June 20 press release of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. The usual suspects of UCIRF could once again be seen ranting about the center's national and state policies which they found discriminatory in nature. For UCIRF, Commissioner David Curry, what is foremost and vital is the Democrats' acknowledgement of addressing India's religious freedom concerns. So President Biden and his administration should discuss all with their Indian counterparts on the sideline of PM Modi's USA visit because strategic dialogues, culture interchange, and tech and defense collaborations can wait, but these self-fabricated things cannot wait. Another approach, another commissioner. Well, Stephen Schneck, the other USCIRF commissioner, believes the Indian government has negative policies toward Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, and to the point, Hindu Dalit communities. I know what you did there, Stephen. Remember, this all happened just when PM Modi is on a high-octane 4-day visit to the USA. But just like morons need mockery, bigots needs to be bewildered by facts. It is never surprising how this ecosystem has come up so far. How well is the USCIRF under the helm of George Soros, the sheer pattern that goes all the way from the democracy rants to the US Democrats, debunking one stratagem at a time. What needs to be known is the helm of anti-India propaganda that has been laid for several years by this lobby. Rants for minorities make them mighty, but speaking for Hindu rights will make them mum. What message does it derive? The power of hypocrisy. Ever notice that from 2020 onwards, the USCIRF has been on a spree to categorize India as a country of particular concern. A deliberate move to rank India alongside nations like Pakistan and Bangladesh. No offense, but this adrenaline to bring the anti-India narrative to life comes from the master of liberals, the desperate democracy establisher, George Soros. It's the Soros-linked fronts that have targeted India with fake data and narratives. Last year, leftist propaganda portal The Wire came up with the false claim that the BJP has the tech fog app, which gives its political leaders an ace to manipulate content on Instagram. Guess what? Owing to false shreds of evidence, the story was taken down. But only a month passes by and on November 22, the USCIRF publishes the report on religious freedom in India. And the same 6-page report finds the mention of tech fog repeatedly, making it all clear to us that the left nexus leaves no stone unturned to degrade India's religious diversity. Except it all ended with an egg on their face, as The Wire had to remove the story from the website after it was revealed how one of their authors had manipulated information and conjured up an app that doesn't exist to attack Modi government. Their hatred for Modi was so blinding that they refused to see through the lies. History teachers and elders, everyone has taught us, no Turks, Mughals or Afghans can be threat to India more than the Chechens of the country. Meet Arunima Bhargav, the recipient of the Leadership in Government Fellowship funded by the Open Society Foundation, none other than Hungarian billionaire George Soros. She has been pivotal in despising several government policies including Article 370 abrogation and the NRC. Not only this, when Writing with Fire, an Oscar-nominated Indian documentary surfaced recently, it was set against a backdrop of anti-Hindu focus, with the BJP turning out to be the usual villain. But it was Arunima Bhargav who was listed as the executive producer of the same. Speaking much of the credibility, she is active with the Ford Foundation. The same foundation funded the documentary about former NDTV journalist Ravish Kumar. Time and again, the USCIRF has been condemned by the Indian government for its biased and inaccurate claims about India's oppression of voices of dissent. But when the meddling in the Indian affairs of the India began, MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi was left with no choice but to pen the official letter reprimanding the USCIRF and other Soros-led fronts. It was only the open source foundation of George Soros that extended support to the likes of journalist Rana Ayub over a withheld tweet. The so-called intellectuals have actually been on his payroll. So USCIRF was not alone when it peddled hysteria surrounding the NRC, CAB and religious freedom. Under the garb of philanthropic activities, Soros has succeeded in his anti-India agenda. Be it the attempt to thwart India's defense deal with France in 2018 by funding NGO Sherpa, or to the Socio-Legal Information Center, which has been desperate enough to repeal the Indian sedition law used against the anti-India elements. It's fair enough to say that USCIRF and the gangs of Soros have lost credibility. But in the quest to debunk their narrative, we found a common thread, or threat, whatever, leaving it up to the audience. It's interesting that USCIRF was formed in 1998 by the Bill Clinton-led administration when the Democratic Party was in charge. And now, it is only the Democratic Party that is in charge with Prez Biden as the leader. One needs to be clear about the Democratic Party's inefficiency in containing religious democracy in its own nation while preaching the same to other nations. Just go back to the basic and join the dots. The Indian American Muslim Council lines up with the Democrats. They are thanksgiving Congresswoman Cori Bush to boycott PM Modi's joint address. Another Congresswoman and controversy favorite, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, is busy encouraging others to boycott. How could Audrey be all alone? The Democratic and Michigan representative Rashida Tlaib is brutally targeting PM Modi. Counting the lobby, Ilhan Omar won't be there. This cannot happen. Minnesota's US Representative Ilhan Omar, who carries strong anti-Semitic views, is holding a briefing with the human rights group against PM Modi. This video will end, but this list won't. But what's common between all of them? It's an affiliation with the Democratic Party. Only a rational mind can think how the largest democracy in the world is causing a sense of discomfort for the Democrats in Uncle Sam. The problem never lies in the Indian democracy. The problem are the American Democrats. No wonder the majority of Hindus in the USA turn out to be supporters of Trump's Republican Party. Keep watching the pamphlet.